Hey guys, welcome to Science Owl Station. Today we begin a quiet journey, one that stretches back far before written words, before cities, before names. Tonight, we're drifting into the soft glow of something ancient, something that has shimmered at the edge of human attention since the very beginning. Gold. Picture this moment slowly. You're standing at the edge of a river thousands of years ago. No clocks, no maps, no numbers to count the days. The water moves gently, polishing stones as it has always done. And there, beneath the surface, something catches the light, not bright, not loud, just a muted glimmer. A color warmer than the sun at dusk. A metal that does not rust, does not fade, does not seem to age at all. Before we go any further, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight, and what time it is for you. I love imagining these stories drifting through different corners of the world. Gold did not announce itself with fire or thunder. It didn't crash into human history the way iron or bronze did. Instead, it waited. Quietly. Patiently. It lay exposed in riverbeds and shallow soil, as if it wanted to be found, but only by those who noticed. Long before gold became currency, before it became crowns, or coins, or rings, it was simply a curiosity. A strange stone that felt heavier than it looked. A fragment of earth that refused to break, refused to tarnish, refused to disappear. And that refusal, more than its beauty, may be what first drew humans toward it. In the earliest human communities, survival demanded attention. Attention to tracks in the dirt, to changes in weather, to the subtle differences between edible plants and dangerous ones. So when something appeared that was unlike any other stone, softer, heavier, glowing softly even in shade, it did not go unnoticed. Gold didn't help you hunt. It didn't keep you warm. It didn't cut wood or shape shelters. And yet, people kept it. They carried it. They traded it. They buried it with the dead. Which tells us something important. From the very start, gold belonged not to survival, but to meaning. Anthropologists believe that gold may have been the first material humans valued purely for what it symbolized, not what it could do. It didn't rot like wood. It didn't crack like stone. It didn't corrode like copper. To early humans, gold must have seemed eternal, unchanging in a world defined by decay. Imagine holding something that looks the same year after year, generation after generation, while everything else around you ages, breaks, and returns to dust. Without knowing chemistry or physics, it would be hard not to feel that this substance existed outside normal time. Some of the oldest gold artifacts we've found are surprisingly simple. Small beads, thin sheets, rough shapes, hammered rather than cut. They weren't tools. They were tokens. Objects meant to be seen and remembered. In many early societies, gold was associated with the sun, not because it was bright, but because it endured. The sun returned every day. Gold stayed forever. And yet, despite its later association with power and violence, gold's earliest role seems almost gentle. There is no evidence that the first gold gatherers fought wars over it. At least not at first. Instead, gold moved slowly between groups, passed hand to hand as gifts, symbols, or offerings. Its value was emotional long before it was economic. Gold became a bridge between the visible world and the invisible one. In burial sites dating back thousands of years, gold objects are often placed near the head or chest. Not randomly, but deliberately, as if the people who placed them believed gold could accompany the dead somewhere beyond reach, somewhere permanent. And that belief didn't appear once. It appeared again and again across cultures that never met. Which is fascinating, because gold itself never asked for worship. It made no sound. It offered no instruction. It simply existed, unchanged, silent, patient. And humans filled that silence with meaning. Over time, as populations grew and memories stretched beyond a single lifetime, stories formed. Gold became associated with ancestry, with lineage, with the idea that something of value could outlast the body that held it. This is where the dream of gold truly begins. Not the dream of wealth, but the dream of permanence. To hold gold was to hold something that did not fear time. But here's the quiet part, the part that's easy to miss. For thousands of years, gold remained rare not because it was hidden, but because people didn't know how to look for it. They didn't dig deep. They didn't mine. They didn't conquer mountains. They simply found gold where nature had already placed it within reach. And because of that, early gold carried a very different energy than it would later in history. It was slow, accidental, almost intimate. You didn't chase gold. You noticed it. And that act of noticing, of pausing long enough to see something small and strange in the flow of water, may be one of the earliest moments where curiosity outweighed survival instinct. Gold, in this sense, was not humanity's first treasure. It was humanity's first wonder. And tonight, as we move forward through this long, unhurried story, we'll see how that wonder slowly transformed. How noticing became searching. Searching became digging. And digging eventually reshaped landscapes and lives. But for now, let's stay here for a moment, by the river, in the half-light, before tools, before empires, before greed had a name. Wherever you are, let the world slow down for a while, soften your gaze, let the hum of life around you fade, and gently drift with us into tonight's quiet exploration. The earliest gold humans ever touched did not come from tunnels or pits or shattered stone. It came from water. Rivers, after all, are patient sculptors. For thousands, sometimes millions, of years, they grind mountains down grain by grain. They pull fragments loose from hard rock, carry them gently downhill, and sort them without intention. Lighter minerals drift away. Heavier ones sink. And gold, being unusually dense, settles quietly into bends, crevices, and shallow hollows along the riverbed. This is why the first gold was not hidden. It was resting. In calm stretches of ancient streams, tiny flakes and rounded nuggets gathered naturally, polished smooth by constant motion. These deposits, what we now call placer or alluvial gold, required no tools to access. No digging. No fire. No special knowledge. Only time and attention. Imagine early humans moving along a riverbank at dusk. They may have been collecting water, washing tools, or simply watching the flow. As the sun lowered, its angle sharpened reflections on the water's surface. Most stones remained dull. But gold responded differently. It did not sparkle sharply, it glowed. Soft. Warm. Almost organic. That subtle glow may have been its greatest advantage. Unlike quartz or mica, which can flash brightly and then vanish, gold holds light steadily. Even a tiny fragment can catch the eye again and again as water shifts around it. Over time, those repeated moments of noticing would have built familiarity. And familiarity builds curiosity. At first, gold likely meant nothing more than the heavy yellow stone. It didn't cut better. It didn't sharpen. It didn't help with food or shelter. But it didn't break either. When struck, it bent. When pressed, it flattened. That behavior alone set it apart from every other stone early humans knew. Gold felt cooperative. Some archaeologists believe that the first gold objects were shaped almost absent-mindedly, hammered while sitting by fires, folded and unfolded by hand, more like a calming habit than a purposeful craft. There was no urgency to it. No deadline. Just experimentation. What's especially interesting is that gold does not appear everywhere evenly. Only certain rivers carry it, depending on the geology upstream. This meant that some groups encountered gold frequently, while others never saw it at all. And when groups met, through migration, trade, or marriage, gold traveled with them. Quietly. Long before roads existed, gold followed water routes. River valleys became the first gold corridors of the ancient world. Not because people planned them, but because rivers already connected human communities naturally. In this way, gold didn't just sit in nature. It moved through it. And because it moved slowly, it gathered stories as it went. In some regions, gold fragments were thought to be pieces of the sun that had fallen into water. In others, they were believed to be the bones of earth spirits. These interpretations weren't attempts at science, they were attempts at comfort. Ways to explain why something so strange and enduring existed at all. Interestingly, early gold collection left almost no scars on the landscape. No pits. No collapsed tunnels. No poisoned streams. Gold gathering was gentle enough to disappear without a trace, much like the people who did it. This makes early gold history difficult to reconstruct. There are no ruins of first gold camps. No monuments marking discovery. Just scattered artifacts, beads, plates, thin sheets, appearing suddenly in archaeological layers, as if gold entered human culture without asking permission. And in a way, it did. Because placer gold doesn't demand conquest. It doesn't resist. It simply waits where gravity leaves it. Some of the earliest known gold artifacts come from river-adjacent settlements, places where water, movement, and time intersected. These communities may not have considered themselves wealthy, but they lived close to something rare without realizing how rare it truly was. They had no concept of scarcity as we understand it today. If gold appeared once, they assumed it would appear again. And for a while, it did. But rivers change. Floods shift sediments. Channels migrate. Deposits thin out. What once seemed abundant slowly becomes occasional, then rare, then gone. And this is where a subtle shift occurs in the human relationship with gold. At first, gold was found. Later, it was sought. That transition, from passive noticing to active searching, did not happen overnight. It unfolded gradually, almost invisibly, as people followed streams further upstream. As they paid attention not just to what lay in the water, but to where it came from. Gold began to whisper a question. Not, "What am I?" but "Where did I come from?" And that question would eventually lead humans away from rivers and toward stone. But for now, gold still belonged to water, to reflections, to slow hands dipping beneath the surface. A metal discovered not through force, but through stillness. At some point, quietly, without ceremony, humans began to realize that gold did not simply appear by chance. It came from somewhere. This realization may not have arrived as a sudden insight, but as a pattern noticed over many seasons. Certain rivers held gold. Others never did. Some bends produced flakes year after year, while stretches just downstream remained empty. The water, it seemed, was only carrying something that already existed upstream. And so attention shifted, from the river itself to the land around it. Early humans were observers before they were engineers. They watched how rain reshaped soil, how animals disturbed the ground, how exposed rock differed from stone buried beneath layers of earth. In this way, the natural world became an unwritten guidebook. One of the most intriguing ideas among archaeologists is that animals may have played a role in early gold discovery. Burrowing creatures, rodents, foxes, even insects, regularly bring material from below the surface up into the open. Pebbles appear around fresh holes. Strange stones surface where none were visible before. To an observant human, these disturbed patches of earth would have stood out. And occasionally, among those stones, there was gold. A small nugget. A heavy fragment. Something that didn't belong. It's easy to imagine someone noticing this repeatedly. The gold wasn't random, it appeared where the ground had been opened. Where something had already done the digging. Nature, once again, was offering hints. This may explain why some of the earliest non-river gold finds are clustered near hillsides, animal paths, and eroded slopes. Places where the earth revealed itself without being forced. But alongside observation, imagination also played its part. Long before written records, humans explained the world through stories. And gold, rare, radiant, and stubbornly indestructible, invited myth almost automatically. One of the most famous of these myths comes from ancient Greece, the story of the Golden Fleece. According to legend, a magical ram with golden wool once flew across the land. After it was sacrificed, its fleece was hung in a sacred grove, shimmering with power and promise. Heroes crossed seas and faced monsters to claim it. On the surface, it's a fantasy. But beneath it, there may be something very practical. Historians believe the Golden Fleece may reflect an ancient gold collecting technique used in mountainous regions. In fast-moving streams, people laid sheep skins across riverbeds or channels. As water rushed over the wool, tiny gold particles became trapped in the fibers. When the skin was dried in the sun, it shimmered, thick with golden dust. A fleece, made of gold. What's remarkable is how closely myth mirrors method. The story preserves not just the idea of gold's value, but the process of finding it, encoded in narrative rather than instruction. This blending of observation and imagination is a recurring pattern in early gold history. Humans didn't separate science from story. They learned through both, at the same time. And gold thrived in that overlap. because it behaved in ways that defied expectations. It didn't fracture when struck. It didn't lose its color. It didn't dissolve in water or decay in soil. It seemed different. To early minds, difference suggested intention. Perhaps gold was placed in the earth deliberately. Perhaps it was meant to be found, but only by those who paid attention. This idea appears again and again in ancient belief systems, that valuable things reveal themselves selectively. Gold, then, was not just discovered. It was encountered. And encounters feel personal. When people began tracing gold upstream, away from calm riverbanks and toward rugged terrain, they were following both logic and intuition. If gold appeared here, it must originate there. Somewhere higher. Somewhere harder to reach. This was the moment when discovery began to shift into pursuit. But it's important to notice how gentle that shift still was. No one rushed in with tools and force. Not yet. Instead, people watched more closely. They noticed exposed rock faces after landslides. They examined the soil around fallen trees. They paid attention to the quiet disruptions, the places where the earth had already opened itself. Gold rewarded that patience. And in doing so, it taught a lesson that would echo through all of mining history. The earth rarely gives up its secrets all at once. It offers clues and waits to see who follows them. Eventually, the rivers began to fall silent. Not literally, of course, but in a way that mattered deeply to those who had grown used to finding gold in their currents. The familiar bends yielded fewer flakes. The shallow hollows no longer held that soft, yellow glimmer. What once felt like a quiet certainty slowly turned into a question. Where did it go? This was the first time gold truly asked humans to move. Rather than waiting at the water's edge, people began walking upstream, past the gentle banks, past the places where daily life usually unfolded. They followed valleys into narrowing channels, into steeper ground where rivers were younger, faster, and less forgiving. And there, in the open sunlight of hills and plateaus, something new appeared. Gold was no longer just lying in water. It was embedded in the earth itself. The earliest surface mines were not mines in the modern sense. They were shallow scars, scooped earth, exposed rock, places where people scraped away soil after noticing golden flecks shining in the stone. This was gold that had not yet been softened and rounded by water. It was angular, raw, still clinging to the rock that birthed it. This marked a quiet but profound change. For the first time, humans were not simply collecting what nature had already separated. They were beginning to interfere with geological processes that usually take millions of years. And they did it cautiously. Early open-pit mining required no complex tools. Stone hammers, wooden wedges, patience. Lots of patience. Workers loosened soil by hand, following veins they could see with the naked eye. When the gold vanished, they stopped. When it reappeared, they continued. There was no concept of depth yet. No desire to burrow underground. The sun still mattered. Air still mattered. Safety, however limited the understanding, still mattered. Some of the oldest known examples of this kind of mining come from ancient Egypt. Along the eastern desert and the Nile's southern reaches, shallow gold pits dot the landscape. Even today, they look almost accidental, as if someone had simply peeled the earth back in a few chosen places and then walked away. But these sites tell a deeper story. Gold in Egypt was not just material, it was sacred. It was associated with eternity, divinity, and the afterlife. Pharaohs did not own gold in the way modern rulers own wealth. They were seen as caretakers of it, guardians of a substance that belonged, ultimately, to the gods. Farther south, in the region once known as Nubia, gold was even more abundant. So much so that ancient Egyptians referred to the area as the land of gold. Here, open-pit mining expanded across hillsides, following visible seams in the rock. These operations were still small by modern standards, but they were organized. Paths connected pits. Tools were shared. Work was divided. Someone removed stone. Someone else crushed it. Others carried fragments away for washing and sorting. This was no longer casual discovery. It was a system. And systems change how people think. Gold was now something you could return to. Something you could plan around. Something that could be expected if you worked for it. This expectation laid the groundwork for everything that followed: ownership, control, and eventually, power. But even at this stage, gold remained reluctant. Surface deposits are finite. Once exposed veins were removed, the ground fell quiet again. And once more, humans faced a choice: move on or go deeper. Standing at the edge of a freshly emptied pit, looking at bare stone beneath their feet, someone must have wondered whether the gold simply ended there, or whether it continued below, hidden, compressed, waiting. That question lingered, and it would soon pull humans beneath the surface of the earth for the very first time. The idea of going underground did not arrive with excitement. It arrived with hesitation. For most of human history, the ground beneath one's feet was a boundary, solid, reliable, and deeply symbolic. To break it open deliberately, to step beneath it, meant entering a space that felt uncertain and unnatural. Darkness lived there. Silence lived there. Air behaved differently. And yet, gold had a way of pulling people toward discomfort. When surface deposits began to vanish, when shallow pits yielded only bare stone, the question returned, soft but persistent. If gold came from rock, and if the rock continued downward, then perhaps the gold did too. The earliest underground mines were not tunnels as we imagine them today. They were narrow, awkward openings, small enough to crawl into, often no deeper than a few body lengths. People followed visible veins downward, removing stone slowly, carefully, always aware that the earth above them was no longer passive. This was dangerous work. There were no supports, no maps, no true understanding of collapse. Only experience. Among the cultures that mastered this early were the Romans. Not because they discovered gold first, but because they learned how to organize labor, materials, and time on an unprecedented scale. Roman gold mining was methodical. Engineers studied rock formations. They traced mineral seams. They developed schedules: when to dig, when to clear debris, when to retreat and let air circulate. This level of planning transformed mining from a risky experiment into a repeatable process. Still, the mines themselves were unforgiving. Roman tunnels were often barely wide enough for one person. Workers crouched or lay flat, chiseling rock by oil lamp light. The air was thick. Smoke from lamps clung to stone walls. Oxygen thinned the deeper they went, though they didn't yet understand why. To solve this, the Romans dug vertical shafts that connected to the surface, primitive ventilation systems. Fresh air flowed down, smoke rose out. It wasn't perfect, but it worked well enough to allow deeper excavation than any civilization before them. And with depth came yield. Gold veins that had never been touched, never even seen, began to surface in fragments, carried upward piece by piece. What had once been a quiet metal resting in rivers was now being torn from the earth itself. This changed gold's character. Underground gold felt earned, hard-won, risk-soaked. And because of that, it gained new meaning. Gold extracted from darkness carried the weight of effort and of lives. Every tunnel collapse, every suffocated worker, every injury became part of the metal's story. Even if those stories were never written down, they lingered in the culture surrounding gold. The deeper humans went, the more gold became associated with authority. Not everyone could access it anymore. Not everyone was allowed near it. Mining required coordination, control, and often force. This was also when gold mining became inseparable from hierarchy. Those who owned the land commanded the mines. Those who commanded the mines commanded labor. And those who labored underground were often invisible. Yet despite the danger, mining continued to expand. Because gold, once glimpsed beneath the surface, was impossible to ignore. The earth had revealed that it was not empty inside, that it held veins, layers, secrets. And once humans understood that, there was no going back to the simplicity of riverbanks. The underground world had opened. And with it, a new chapter, one where fire, water, and stone would be forced into cooperation, whether they wanted to be or not. Going deeper introduced a new problem: stone. Hard rock did not yield easily to hand tools. Chisels dulled. Hammers fractured. Progress slowed to a crawl. And in the dim stillness of underground tunnels, time stretched differently. An entire day's work might advance the tunnel only a few inches. So humans turned to the oldest force they understood: fire. The technique that emerged is known today as fire setting, though to the people who practiced it, it had no formal name. It was simply what worked. A fire was built directly against the rock face at the end of a tunnel. Not a brief flame, but a sustained burn, left roaring for hours, sometimes through the night. Stone expands when heated. Not quickly, but relentlessly. As the rock absorbed heat, it weakened internally. Invisible cracks formed. Stress built slowly, quietly. Then, when water, often cold, was thrown onto the superheated surface, the sudden contraction caused the stone to fracture. Sometimes with a sharp crack. Sometimes with a dull, tired sigh. The rock didn't explode. It gave up. In the morning, miners returned to find the once solid wall fractured into manageable pieces. These fragments could then be pried loose with tools and carried away. The process was slow, repetitive, and exhausting, but it worked where metal alone could not. Fire setting transformed mining. It allowed humans to cut into rock that would otherwise have been untouchable. Veins once protected by hard stone could now be reached. Tunnels grew longer. Mines grew deeper. But the cost was steep. Fire demanded fuel, and underground fires demanded a lot of it. Entire forests were slowly consumed to keep mines alive. In some regions, hillsides were stripped bare, not for buildings or ships, but for heat hidden beneath the earth. Inside the mines, the air became thick and dangerous. Smoke clung to the ceiling of tunnels. Soot-coated lungs. Toxic gases, unknown and unnamed, built up silently. Miners often worked through headaches, dizziness, and breathlessness, unaware that the very air they inhaled was changing them. Firesetting also left scars that lasted long after the flames died. Rock walls blackened. Ceilings weakened. Structural integrity suffered. A tunnel heated and cooled repeatedly became unstable, prone to sudden collapse. Many early mine failures were not caused by digging too far, but by heating the stone too often. And yet, despite all this, the technique spread. From Roman mines in Spain to gold operations in Egypt and beyond, firesetting became standard practice. It was dangerous, inefficient, and environmentally costly, but it represented a breakthrough. Humans had learned how to convince stone to cooperate. There is something quietly symbolic about that. Firesetting required patience. You couldn't rush it. You lit the fire and waited. Hours passed. Sometimes nothing seemed to change. Then, only after cooling, did the results appear. In a strange way, this mirrored gold itself. Both required time. Both resisted force. Both rewarded restraint. But fire also changed the emotional atmosphere of mining. Where early gold gathering had been calm, almost meditative, fire introduced tension. Heat. Risk. Urgency. Mines were no longer places of silent observation. They became sites of controlled danger. Gold was still beautiful, but now it smelled like smoke. This shift mattered. Because once fire entered the story, mining could never return to innocence. The act of extracting gold became something that visibly altered the world, burning trees, blackening stone, and filling air with ash. The earth was no longer just being explored. It was being pushed. And while fire opened the way deeper underground, it also set the stage for the next realization that not everything had to be broken by force. Some things could be separated simply by letting gravity do the work. After stone had been cracked and carried out of the dark, another quiet problem remained. Not all rock was gold. In fact, most of it wasn't. The fragments hauled up from underground tunnels were heavy, rough, and unremarkable at first glance. Somewhere within them, sometimes invisibly, gold was hidden. And breaking every stone apart by hand was not only exhausting, it was unnecessary. So miners returned to something they had known long before tunnels and fire. Water. Gold behaves differently from most materials, not in color, not in shine, but in weight. It is unusually dense. A small piece weighs far more than it looks like it should. And this single property allowed humans to separate gold without cutting, burning, or crushing everything in its path. The method was simple. Crushed rock was mixed with water. The mixture was gently shaken, tilted, or swirled. Lighter materials, sand, gravel, dust, floated or washed away. Heavier particles sank. Gold stayed behind. This process required no theory, no equations, no written instruction. It revealed itself naturally to anyone patient enough to observe what settled first and what moved last. The earliest gold pans were not pans at all. They were shallow bowls carved from wood, stone, or even hardened clay. Some were little more than concave surfaces held carefully over flowing water. The motion mattered more than the tool. Too fast, and everything was lost. Too slow, and nothing separated. There was a rhythm to it. A gentle tilt. A small swell. A pause. Repeat. This repetitive motion, steady, unhurried, may be one of the reasons gold washing appears so often in calm, almost meditative settings in ancient art. It was physical labor, yes, but it was also focused, quiet, and strangely soothing. The Romans refined this further. Instead of small bowls, they built wooden sluices, long, shallow channels that directed water downhill. Crushed ores poured in at the top. As water flowed through, ridges and cloth-lined grooves trapped heavy particles while lighter material washed away. Sometimes, sheep skins were laid across these channels. The fibers of wool are naturally irregular, perfect for catching tiny gold flakes. Over time, the skins became heavy with metallic dust. When dried, they shimmered softly, giving rise, once again, to the image of a golden fleece. This was gold separation at scale. No longer one person, one bowl, one stream, but systems that could process large volumes of material continuously. Water did the work. Gravity did the sorting. Humans simply guided the flow. What's striking is how little force this required. After the violence of fire setting and stone breaking, gold washing returned the process to something almost peaceful. No heat. No smoke. No darkness. Just sunlight, water, and patience. In some ancient mining communities, gold washing areas were placed downstream from mines, away from the tunnels. These spaces were open, communal, and, by comparison, safe. It's likely that they became social centers of mining life, where conversation returned and time slowed again. Gold, once torn from stone, seemed to prefer calm environments. There's also something quietly poetic about this stage. After being dragged from darkness, gold was allowed to rest. After being burned and broken, it was allowed to sink. And in sinking, it revealed itself. This method of separation endured for thousands of years with remarkably little change. Even today, modern gold panning relies on the same principle discovered in antiquity. Technology may refine it, but gravity still decides. And gravity is patient. Yet as gold became easier to separate, it also became easier to accumulate. And accumulation changes things. Where gold could once be held in a palm, it now filled containers. Where it was once personal, it became countable, measurable, guarded. The calm of washing masked a growing imbalance. Because while water sorted gold effortlessly, humans were beginning to sort themselves. As gold became easier to extract and separate, another change followed, quiet at first, but deeply consequential. The work began to shift away from those who benefited from it. In the earliest days, the same hands that noticed gold in a river were the ones that carried it home. The same people who shaped it also decided what it meant. But mining, especially underground mining, does not remain small for long. It demands coordination. It demands endurance. And eventually, it demands bodies. Lots of them. By the time gold mining expanded across large territories, Particularly under empires like Egypt and Rome, the labor required was no longer voluntary in any meaningful sense. Mining became a task assigned, not chosen. And those assigned to it were rarely free. Historical records and archaeological evidence tell a consistent story. The majority of ancient gold miners were enslaved people, prisoners of war, or criminals sentenced to labor. In some Roman texts, being sent to the mines was considered worse than death. It was a slow erasure rather than an ending. The mines themselves reflected this reality. They were hot, cramped, and relentlessly dark. Workers spent long hours crouched or lying flat, chipping away at stone that resisted every movement. Injuries were common. Rest was rare. And the air, thick with dust and smoke, slowly damaged lungs with every breath. But what made gold mines especially brutal was their isolation. Many were located far from cities, deep in deserts or mountains. Once sent there, a worker was effectively removed from society. There was no audience for suffering. No one passing by to notice. Gold was being produced in silence. In Egypt's Nubian gold fields, entire mining settlements were built solely to house forced labor. Archaeologists have found chains, crude shelters, and skeletal remains bearing signs of extreme stress and malnutrition. These were not temporary camps. They were places designed to extract as much labor as possible until the body failed. The Romans followed a similar pattern in Spain. At sites like Las Medulas, entire landscapes were reshaped to expose gold-bearing rock. Water was redirected. Hillsides collapsed intentionally. Thousands of laborers worked in coordinated systems, many of them enslaved or condemned. From a distance, these operations looked efficient. Up close, they were devastating. And yet, gold itself carried none of this visibly. Once refined, it bore no mark of who had suffered to free it from stone. It shone the same whether it came from a riverbed or a collapsed tunnel. This invisibility made gold uniquely dangerous. Its beauty concealed its cost. This is one of the most unsettling aspects of gold's history. The metal that symbolized eternity was extracted through lives considered disposable. And this contradiction did not trouble ancient societies in the way we might expect. Gold's association with gods, kings, and the afterlife placed it beyond ordinary moral rules. Suffering was not seen as a flaw in the system, but as part of it. For the ruling classes, gold justified itself. But even in these harsh conditions, something human persisted. Archaeologists have found small, unofficial carvings in mining tunnels. Marks scratched into stone. Simple symbols. They were not functional. They served no economic purpose. They were signs that someone had been there and wanted to be remembered. In a place designed to erase identity, those marks mattered. Gold moved upward, into temples, treasuries, and tombs. The miners did not. And this separation, between the brilliance of the metal and the darkness of its extraction, became a defining feature of gold's legacy. As we move forward in this story, gold will increasingly appear in sacred spaces, in burial chambers, in rituals meant to preserve life beyond death. But it's worth remembering, softly and without judgment, that many of those golden objects were shaped by hands that never knew rest. The glow of gold has always been warm, but the places it comes from were often very cold. When gold finally left the mines, when it passed through washing channels and refining fires, it entered a very different world. Silence remained, but it was no longer the silence of exhaustion. It was the silence of reverence. Across ancient civilizations, gold became inseparable from death. Not in a fearful sense, but in a strangely comforting one. While the body decayed, gold endured. And that endurance made it feel like a bridge, something solid that could cross from one state of existence into another. Nowhere was this belief more carefully developed than in ancient Egypt. To the Egyptians, gold was not merely valuable. It was divine. They believed it to be the flesh of the gods, a substance that did not belong fully to the human world. Unlike iron, which rusted, or copper, which darkened, gold seemed immune to time. That immunity made it suitable for eternity. And eternity was the goal. Mummification was not about preservation for curiosity, it was preparation. The body was carefully treated so the soul could recognize it in the afterlife. And gold played a crucial role in that recognition. Masks, amulets, and coverings were placed on the dead not for decoration, but for continuity. The most famous example, of course, is the burial mask of Tutankhamun. Crafted from solid gold and inlaid with stone, it was designed not to honor the living king, but to protect the Eternal One. The face was idealized, calm, and unchanging. A face meant to last longer than memory. But this practice was not unique to Egypt. Across the ancient world, gold followed the dead. In the burial mounds of the Scythians, gold ornaments were laid beside warriors, reflecting both status and belief. In Mycenaean Greece, golden death masks were placed over faces, echoing Egyptian customs in form if not in theology. Even in cultures with no direct contact, the instinct repeated itself. Gold went where life could not. What's striking is that many of these objects were never meant to be seen again. They were sealed underground, hidden from light, placed beyond reach. Their value was not in display, but in presence. Gold didn't need an audience. It simply needed to be there. This challenges how we usually think about wealth. In modern terms, something valuable is often something visible, something exchanged. But ancient gold often disappeared from circulation entirely. Tons of labor, craftsmanship, and material were committed to objects meant to vanish into tombs. Why? Because gold, to ancient minds, was stable in a world that wasn't. It didn't symbolize luxury alone, it symbolized certainty. In death, where everything else was unknown, gold was familiar. Heavy. Real. Untouched by rot or corrosion. Placing it with the dead was a way of anchoring the soul, to remind it of something solid in a realm that might otherwise feel unbounded. Even small gold items carried this meaning. Thin sheets placed over eyes. Tiny beads sewn into wrappings. Amulets shaped like symbols of protection. None of these weighed much. But each carried the same message: this will last. And that belief had consequences. Because every ounce of gold buried was gold removed from use. Entire civilizations willingly locked away immense wealth, not out of ignorance, but out of conviction. Gold was more important as a companion in eternity than as currency among the living. In this way, gold became both abundant and unreachable. Known to exist, but hidden. Seen only by memory and belief. And as generations passed, these hidden caches of gold took on new meaning. They became temptations. Tombs were forgotten. Locations were lost. Stories faded into rumor. And what had once been sacred slowly transformed into something else entirely, a promise waiting to be rediscovered. Gold fell asleep underground. And one day, someone would wake it. There is a quietly surprising truth about gold, one that rarely feels intuitive, especially given how deeply it has shaped history. There isn't very much of it. For a metal that has inspired empires, fueled exploration, and reshaped entire landscapes, gold exists in remarkably small quantity. If every piece of gold ever mined, from ancient river flakes to modern bullion, were gathered together, it would form a volume far smaller than most people imagine. Roughly speaking, all the gold extracted by humanity across thousands of years could fit into just a few Olympic-sized swimming pools. 3. Maybe 4. That's it. This realization feels almost unreal when you pause with it. Wars were fought. Lives were lost. Civilizations rose and fell. And all of it revolved around a substance that, when physically gathered, would barely fill a city block. But this scarcity was not obvious to ancient people. In early mining eras, gold felt abundant because demand was limited. There were no global markets, no standardized currency systems, no vaults hoarding reserves. Gold appeared locally and disappeared locally, without a sense of total quantity. People judged abundance by experience, not statistics. If gold appeared in a river year after year, it seemed endless. If a mine yielded gold for decades, it felt permanent. But slowly, quietly, the truth emerged. Gold does not regenerate. It does not grow back. Once removed, it is simply gone. Ancient miners noticed this first through absence. Rivers that once shimmered no longer did. Hillsides that once yielded veins turned mute. New mines had to be opened farther away, deeper, in harsher terrain. Scarcity began to move. And as it did, gold's value shifted again. What had once been wondrous became strategic. What had once been symbolic became counted. Gold was weighed, divided, stored, and guarded. Its rarity, once poetic, became practical. This is also when gold began to feel heavy in a different way. Not physically, but psychologically. Owning gold now meant something about your position in the world. Who had access? Who didn't? Who could command labor, and who could be sent underground to retrieve it? And yet, despite this growing awareness, gold never lost its calm appearance. It did not tarnish. It did not fade. It looked as plentiful as ever, right up until it wasn't. This visual deception may be one of gold's most powerful qualities. Other scarce resources announce their limits. Forests thin. Soils erode. Herds vanish. But gold gives no such warning. It shines just as brightly on the last nugget as it did on the first. In ancient societies, this made it difficult to accept scarcity emotionally. People sensed gold was rare, but they could not see the end of it. And so they continued to believe there was always more, just out of reach. Another river. Another hill. Another hidden place. This belief fueled exploration and myth alike. If gold was scarce here, perhaps it was abundant elsewhere. If the earth was quiet now, perhaps it spoke louder in distant lands. Gold's limited quantity did not discourage ambition. It intensified it. And in this way, scarcity became a kind of invitation, one that whispered not "stop," but "search." Gold's smallness, paradoxically, made it vast in imagination. Because when something is both rare and enduring, it begins to feel meaningful beyond reason. It feels chosen, intentional, as if the earth itself decided how much to give, and no more. That sense of limit would eventually push humans to test boundaries they hadn't yet imagined crossing. And as we'll soon see, when scarcity meets desire, imitation is never far behind. Long before modern laboratories and precise measurements, people were already trying to answer a very old question. How do you know if something is truly gold? As soon as gold became scarce and valuable, imitation followed. This wasn't a sign of moral decline. It was a sign of attention. Where desire concentrates, deception inevitably appears. Ancient gold forgers did not have to fool science. They only had to fool the eye. And the eye, it turns out, is remarkably easy to deceive. Copper alloys mixed with tin or zinc could produce a warm yellow sheen. Polished carefully, these metals reflected light in a way that felt convincing, especially in dim interiors lit by fire or oil lamps. To an untrained observer, the difference between gold and its imitations was subtle, sometimes invisible. This is why early gold testing relied not on theory, but on experience. Gold was bitten, scratched, bent. Unlike most metals, gold does not snap or crack under pressure. It yields slowly. It forgives force. That softness became one of its defining identifiers. A ring that bent instead of breaking was trusted. One that resisted was questioned. But even these methods were imperfect. Stories of deception circulated widely in the ancient world. Merchants argued. Rulers doubted offerings. Temples worried about corruption slipping quietly into sacred spaces. Gold's reliability, its emotional anchor, was suddenly at risk. And then came one of history's most famous moments of doubt. In the 3rd century BCE, King Hiero II of Syracuse commissioned a golden crown for a temple offering. The goldsmith delivered a beautiful piece, heavy and radiant. But the king hesitated. Something felt wrong. He suspected that the craftsman had secretly replaced some of the gold with cheaper metal, keeping the difference for himself. The problem was delicate. The crown could not be damaged. It had to remain whole. And yet, it had to be tested. The solution arrived not in a workshop, but in a bath. According to legend, the Greek thinker Archimedes noticed that when he lowered himself into water, the water level rose. In that gentle displacement, he realized that objects could be measured not just by weight, but by volume. Gold, being denser than most metals, would displace less water than an imitation of the same weight. The insight was so sudden that he reportedly leapt from the bath and ran through the streets shouting a single word: Eureka! Whether every detail of the story is true matters less than what it represents. For the first time, gold was being tested not by appearance or tradition, but by principle. Observation gave way to measurement. Trust gave way to verification. This moment marks a subtle turning point. Gold was no longer just a sacred substance. It was a physical problem to be solved. And once that shift occurred, there was no returning to innocence. Goldsmiths refined their techniques. So did forgers. Each advancement invited the other. Thicker plating, more precise alloys, better polishing. The dance continued, quiet and endless. What's remarkable is how calm gold remains in this story. It does not react. It does not protest. It does not change. Humans project value onto it, fear onto it, suspicion onto it. Gold simply stays gold. Perhaps that is why it has always been both trusted and doubted, desired and questioned, pure and impure, sometimes at the same time. In trying to imitate gold, humans learned something unexpected. That truth is not always visible, and that even the most beautiful things may need to be tested, not because they are unworthy, but because they matter. As gold's authenticity became something to prove rather than assume, the imagination began to stretch outward again. If gold could be imitated, perhaps it could also be found somewhere far beyond the places we already knew. And that thought would soon give rise to some of the most persistent and haunting dreams in human history. Once gold became something that could be measured, tested, and counted, it also became something that could be imagined elsewhere. Far elsewhere. As familiar sources ran dry and known minds grew quiet, stories began to travel faster than gold itself. Whispers of distant lands where the metal lay closer to the surface. Places where rivers still glittered endlessly. Where gold was said to be so common that it lost its seriousness, used for decoration, or left unattended. These stories rarely came with maps. They came with names. Offa, El Dorado. Cities spoken of in half-certainties and full desire. In the Hebrew Bible, Offa is described as a distant land from which King Solomon's fleets returned with immense quantities of gold. Its exact location was never clearly defined. Some believed it lay in Arabia. Others placed it along the eastern coast of Africa. Still others imagined it somewhere in India or Southeast Asia. The lack of certainty did not weaken the story. It strengthened it. Because Offa wasn't just a place, it was an idea. A reminder that gold might exist beyond the horizon, untouched by exhaustion or scarcity. That somewhere, the earth still gave freely. El Dorado followed a similar path. Originally, it was not a city at all, but a person, a ruler said to cover himself in gold dust during ritual ceremonies before washing it away in a sacred lake. Over time, the story shifted. The man became a kingdom. The kingdom became a city. The city became an entire land made of gold. And each transformation made the dream larger. What's striking is how persistent these legends were. Expedition after expedition failed to find what they sought. Harsh terrain, disease, starvation, and conflict claimed countless lives. Yet the stories survived intact. Because they answered something deeper than geography. They answered hope. Gold legends flourished most intensely during moments of uncertainty, when empires strained, when economies faltered, when familiar sources no longer satisfied demand. In those moments, the idea that unimaginable wealth existed just beyond reach became deeply comforting. It meant scarcity was temporary. It meant loss was local. It meant the world was still generous, just elsewhere. These myths also reveal something important about how humans relate to gold. Gold is rarely imagined as newly created. It is imagined as hidden, buried, forgotten, sleeping. Legends do not speak of gold being made, but of gold waiting. Waiting in valleys no one has walked. Waiting beneath lakes untouched by history. Waiting behind jungles dense enough to protect it from discovery. This framing allowed people to believe that the earth still held secrets, vast ones. That human effort, if persistent enough, would eventually be rewarded. But there is a quieter truth beneath these stories. Many legendary gold sites were inspired by real places that had already been stripped. Once rich regions faded into memory. Their names survived, but their substance did not. The story remained golden, even as the land fell silent. In this way, legend preserved abundance long after reality moved on. Gold became a memory of itself. And memories, unlike mines, do not run out. These myths also changed how exploration worked. Journeys were no longer driven solely by trade or survival, but by imagination. People set out not knowing what they would find, but convinced that something extraordinary must exist. Gold became less about certainty and more about possibility. And that possibility carried its own power. Even when nothing was found, the journey itself reshaped maps, cultures, and contact between distant peoples. Gold, whether present or not, moved humanity outward. It stretched horizons. And in doing so, it left behind something unexpected, not just disappointment, but artifacts. Objects buried, lost, abandoned along the way. Pieces of gold that slipped from history and waited quietly beneath soil and sand. Waiting, once again, to be found, not by conquerors or kings, but by chance. Most people imagine the discovery of ancient gold as something deliberate. Carefully planned excavations. Scholars brushing dust from relics. A moment framed by expertise and intention. But the truth is far quieter and far more accidental. A surprising number of the world's most important gold discoveries were made by people who were not looking for gold at all. They were digging a ditch, plowing a field, casting a fishing net, or simply walking across ground that shifted in just the right way. Gold, after all, has a habit of resurfacing. Because it does not rust, rot, or dissolve, gold objects buried thousands of years ago often emerge almost unchanged. Soil moves. Rivers alter course. Human activity disturbs layers that have been undisturbed for centuries. And suddenly, something ancient appears in the present. One of the most remarkable examples comes from Varna, on the western coast of what is now Bulgaria. In the early 1970s, construction workers were digging a trench, nothing more. There was no expectation of history beneath their feet. But as the earth was turned, objects began to surface. Small golden items at first. Then more. And then, an overwhelming number of them. What had been uncovered was one of the oldest known gold treasures in the world, dating back more than 6,000 years. The Varna necropolis contained thousands of gold artifacts, beads, bracelets, ceremonial objects. Some graves held immense quantities of gold, while others nearby contained none at all. This uneven distribution suggested something startling. Social inequality existed far earlier than previously believed. Gold had already become a marker of status, long before written language, long before organized states. And it had done so quietly, without monuments or records. Only buried objects told the story. What makes discoveries like Varna especially haunting is their randomness. For millennia, the gold lay untouched. Entire civilizations rose and fell above it. And then, through chance alone, it returned to light. This pattern repeats across history. Farmers in England uncovering hoards while turning soil. Fishermen pulling golden artifacts from the sea floor. Children finding ancient coins along eroded paths. Gold does not require ceremony to reappear. It simply waits until the moment arrives. And when it does, the past collapses into the present without warning. These rediscoveries challenge our sense of continuity. They remind us that history is not neatly layered, it is folded. Objects move. Meanings shift. Something made for a ritual long forgotten can suddenly become a museum centerpiece. But there is another, quieter side to these finds. Not every discovery becomes famous. Not every artifact is preserved. Many ancient gold objects vanish again, melted down, sold, repurposed. Their original stories erased in favor of new ones. Gold, resilient as it is, cannot protect its memory forever. And yet, even when reshaped, it carries something forward. Atoms forged in ancient furnaces persist. Gold from a burial mask might one day exist as jewelry, coin, or component, its form changed, its essence intact. In this way, ancient craftsmanship continues to circulate invisibly through modern life. Gold does not insist on being remembered as it was. It only insists on continuing. These accidental discoveries also reveal something about human attention. We often imagine history as something that requires effort to uncover. But sometimes, it simply reveals itself to those who happen to be present. To those who pause when something looks out of place. To those who recognize that the earth occasionally speaks without being asked. Gold has always favored that kind of noticing. Not conquest. Not ambition. But awareness. And perhaps that is why, even now, it continues to surprise us, not when we demand answers, but when we are quietly going about our lives. Waiting, as it always has, for the moment when the present brushes against the past and doesn't pull away. There is a deceptively simple question that has followed gold for as long as humans have noticed it. Why is gold, gold? Not valuable, not rare, but yellow. At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Gold is gold because that's its color, an almost circular explanation. But when you step back and look at the natural world, something feels slightly off. Most metals are gray. Silver, iron, lead, tin, all variations of the same muted tone. Even copper, which leans toward red, still lives in the realm of dull reflection. Gold does not. It carries warmth. It reflects light selectively. It glows instead of glaring. For thousands of years, no one knew why. Ancient cultures explained gold's color symbolically. Some believed it absorbed sunlight. Others thought it was infused with divine energy. In alchemy, gold was considered the perfect metal, balanced and complete, its color seen as a visible sign of internal harmony. But the real explanation lies somewhere far quieter and far stranger. Gold's color comes from the behavior of its electrons. In most metals, electrons absorb and reflect light in predictable ways, bouncing back nearly all visible wavelengths equally. This is why most metals appear silvery. Gold, however, is different at a fundamental level. Its atoms are heavy, so heavy that the electrons orbiting them begin to behave according to the rules of relativity. They move fast enough that time, in a sense, runs differently for them. This relativistic effect alters how gold absorbs light. Blue wavelengths are absorbed slightly more than others, leaving red and yellow wavelengths to be reflected back to our eyes. The result is that unmistakable warm glow, a visible consequence of physics operating at the edge of human perception. In other words, gold looks the way it does because its atoms are moving close to the speed of light. It is quietly extreme. And this extremity carries other consequences. Gold's atomic structure also makes it unusually soft. Softer than iron. Softer than copper. So soft, in fact, that it can be shaped without breaking its internal bonds. This is why gold can be hammered thinner than almost any other metal. A single ounce, about 28 grams, can be beaten into a sheet large enough to cover several square meters. Thin enough that light can pass through it. Thin enough to ripple in a breeze. Ancient artisans did not know the science behind this softness, but they understood its behavior intimately. They learned how gold responded to pressure, how it stretched instead of shattered, how it accepted shape without resistance. This made gold deeply personal to work with. Unlike brittle materials that demand precision, gold forgives mistakes. It bends. It yields. It allows correction. In the hands of a patient craftsperson, it feels almost alive, responsive, adaptable, calm. This quality may explain why gold became associated not just with power, but with care, with ritual, with objects meant to be handled slowly and intentionally. Gold invites touch in a way few materials do. And yet, for all its softness, gold endures. It does not corrode. It does not oxidize. It does not decay. So we are left with a fascinating contradiction. Gold is soft, but eternal. Gentle, but unchanging. Malleable, yet stubbornly permanent. Its color, its texture, its behavior, all arise from the same quiet truth: gold exists at the edge of extremes. Heavy enough to bend the rules of physics. Stable enough to resist the passage of time. Ancient people sensed this long before science could explain it. They didn't need equations to feel that gold was unusual. They only needed to hold it, watch it catch light, and notice that it remained exactly the same year after year. Gold did not promise immortality, but it suggested it. And that suggestion, subtle, persistent, and strangely comforting, may be the deepest reason gold has never loosened its grip on the human imagination. By the time gold reached the modern world, it had already lived many lives. It had been a curiosity in riverbeds, a reward for patience, a justification for suffering, a symbol of gods, kings, and eternity. And yet, at its core, gold never truly changed. What changed was us. As tools evolved and knowledge deepened, gold moved from hands to vaults, from ritual to accounting. It became currency, reserve, insurance against uncertainty. Nations measured their stability by how much of it they controlled. Economies rose and fell in relation to its weight. But even in this rationalized form, gold retained its old magic. People still trusted it more than paper. Still turned to it in times of fear. Still believed it meant safety when other systems failed. This is perhaps the quietest truth of all. Gold's power does not come from what it does. It comes from what it doesn't do. It doesn't corrode. It doesn't disappear. It doesn't argue with time. In a world defined by change, gold offers stillness. Today, gold no longer rests only in tombs or treasuries. It flows invisibly through our lives, inside smartphones, satellites, medical devices, and computers. Thin layers of gold carry signals, protect circuits, and ensure reliability at scales ancient miners could never imagine. The same metal once gathered from riverbeds now orbits Earth. And yet, despite this technological transformation, the story feels familiar. Gold is still extracted with effort, still desired, still unevenly distributed, still wrapped in ideas of value that go far beyond its physical form. When we look back across its history, a pattern emerges. Gold is never just about wealth. It is about certainty, about permanence, about the hope that something can remain unchanged while everything else moves on. This is why the sleepy facts of gold matter. They remind us that beneath the noise of markets and headlines, gold's story has always unfolded slowly, over centuries, over millennia, through small observations, quiet labor, and patient waiting. Gold does not rush, and neither did the people who first noticed it. They bent down, they looked closer, they picked something small and heavy from moving water, and wondered why it felt different. That moment of wondering is where everything began, and perhaps that is where it still lives. Because even now, when we hold gold, whether as jewelry, investment, or artifact, we are holding a thread that runs unbroken through human history. A material that has passed through countless hands, each one projecting meaning onto it, each one hoping it might anchor them to something lasting. Gold never promised answers. It offered presence. And sometimes, presence is enough. As this journey slowly comes to rest, let your thoughts drift back to that first riverbank. The quiet water, the soft light, the moment when something small caught the eye and asked for attention. Gold's story is long, but it is not loud. It unfolds in whispers, through soil, stone, and time. Through hands that worked patiently, and minds that wandered gently. Tonight, you don't need to remember dates or details. You don't need to hold on to every fact. Let the images fade instead. Rivers carrying fragments of sunlight. Fire warming stone deep underground. Water sorting what is heavy from what is light. And gold, unchanged, moving slowly from place to place. History does not rush here. It breathes. If your thoughts begin to wander, let them. If your eyes grow heavy, allow them to close. There is nothing left to solve. Gold has always waited. And it will continue to wait long after we sleep. So settle into the stillness. Let the world feel a little quieter. And drift gently onward, carrying only the calm.